Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 186 of the Kiss Army Nation podcast. I'm your host, Pasquale Barry. Unfortunately, Claudia couldn't make it tonight due to work obligations, so I'm going solo, but Claudia will be back on the next episode. Now, I am so excited to have our next guest on the show, who is not only a diehard Kiss fan, but also the creator of a Kiss fan page that really embodies what it means to be a Kiss fan. And if that isn't enough, he is the current bassist for the band River City Rejects. Get ready to rock as we dive into the world of Kiss fandom, Kiss fan page creation, and music. Kiss Army, please welcome my guest, John Carter. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hi, awesome to be here. I'm a big fan of the show, so I thought it was really cool when you asked me, so I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. John, I came across your page, Larger Than Life Media, and we'll talk more about that later. But I was really impressed how you shared so much content from other Kiss fans. So I thought it only appropriate that we share your love for Kiss and Kiss music. I'm really looking forward to getting to know you a lot better. So let's start with talking Kiss. What sparked your interest in Kiss? How has Kiss music impacted your life, and what does it mean to you?
Well, it's kind of a funny story. Like, I've kind of noticed that certain things that you're scared of when you're younger, you embrace when you're older. So when I was really young, I'd probably say around like 5 years old, and I ran into my cousin's room to hide. And I ran in there, and on his wall was a wall-sized poster of the Destroyer album cover. And I was frightened out of my skin. I was just like, I looked over at Gene, and then I saw Paul's chest hair ablaze. And I'm like, oh, what is this? And so I ran out of the room because I was scared of the monster, on the wall, and just like, I'd never seen anything like it before. And then after a while throughout the day playing, I snuck back into his room, and I'm like, what is this? And I looked over, I noticed he had like records. I remember seeing the Dynasty album cover, and I was just like, okay, there's something going on here. Are these superheroes? Are they monsters? What are they? And then around the same time, I Was Made for Loving You was on the radio all the time.
Yeah.
And I love that song. And probably the third part of this is I was watching Johnny Carson late one night, with my parents. And Kiss was never a guest in studio to play on the soundstage there. They played like a promo clip of I guess the tour that they were on with Meatloaf at the time or whatever, the Dynasty tour. And I was blown away. And then you ever notice, like, when you buy a certain car of a certain color, you notice more cars that are like the same color everywhere you go. Yeah. I noticed Kiss everywhere I went. I'm like, these guys in the makeup. And Peter Criss was my favorite right away. He was the cat, and so being 5 years old, I was really into that. And so I Was Made for Loving You was on the radio and stuff. And then when you're a young kid, you get into toys and He-Man, G.I. Joe, the whole nine or whatever. So, I had this love of like superheroes and like just, anything where there was kind of like something that took you into a different universe, and I felt like Kiss kind of did that. Kiss was, you were in the Kiss world, you know what I mean? And like, like I said, you'd see them on TV, magazine covers and whatnot. And so, as you do when you're a young kid, you're subject to trends. So, Kiss sort of fizzled out, as we know, in the early 80s. And then right around 1983, I was 8 years old. I was walking through my living room, and MTV was always on. And I happened to walk through there when they did a replay of the Kiss unmasking, taking the makeup off. And then they played the world premiere video for Lick It Up. And I remember running to my mom. I'm like, Mom, you remember those scary guys that were in my cousin's room, whatever. I said, well, they're on TV and they don't wear makeup anymore. And so ever since then, I was just fascinated. Ever since I was 8 years old, and anything that looked like Kiss, anything that just kind of resembled Kiss, I liked Twisted Sister, you know what I mean? I liked, any larger than life rock and roll. I was even really big into Run DMC. And when they did the collaboration with Aerosmith, I'm like, oh, loud guitars, people in bands that look like characters or whatever. So I love that. And so, I just kind of carried that through, through my young childhood and my adolescence into now I'm 49 and I'm still obsessed with Kiss.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you got into Kiss because of the image, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you got into them for the image. How did you feel when you heard the music for the first time? Did you feel the music fit with the image?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it really did because I remember, and it's very vivid in my brain when I saw the promo video for "I Was Made for Loving You." It would come on like the most random things. It'd be like on some cable channel at the end of a show, they'd show like an ABBA video, a Donnie and Marie video, and then "I Was Made for Loving," just randomly in the middle of programs, like amongst commercials. And I would see it, and like to me, the hard driving beat, like the do 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 do,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was just like so much of it was so, to me it fit. It totally fit. And then when I saw the video for "Lick It Up," which is probably the next Kiss single that was really on my radar a few years later, it was just kind of like it was badass. It was like, oh, they look like, they look like guys from Mad Max or some post-apocalyptic thing. And to me, the video for "Lick It Up" totally made sense. The music made sense. It was like loud, aggressive, dirty music and loud, aggressive, mean-looking dudes, and it's just like, it all kind of fit. And throughout the 80s, I feel the Kiss really embraced the quote unquote hair metal era well. And I mean, people have criticized them. Gene and Paul have said that they didn't really feel like they fit in. They tried to fit in. Honestly, from my perspective, I thought they were the torchbearers. They were the ones leading the charge during that 1980s hard rock era. So yeah, definitely the music and the image.
Okay, okay. Now, I've always said on this show that, part of being a Kiss fan, the beauty of being a Kiss fan is connecting with other fans. And that's what really attracted me to your fan page on Larger Than Life Media. Like I said in the introduction, really, it embodies what it means to be a Kiss fan. So, did you feel the need for such a page now that Kiss reached the end of the road?
That's an excellent question. Yes, I honestly do, because not only are there great shows like Kiss Army Nation, Kiss Army Things, Podcast Rock City, Shout It Out Loudcast, all these great shows. I've been listening to Kiss podcasts since I knew podcasts were a thing, but like really now that Kiss, they reached the end of the road and like they're not touring anymore and not putting on any music, I think it's really cool. And it's really, I think it's a good thing that there's different media out there that carries on the legacy, carries on the music. And just like Gene and Paul have said recently in interviews, like it's not the end of Kiss, it's the beginning of a new chapter. And I feel that it's up to Kiss fans to sort of keep it going and keep it alive, as long as, as long as we can, and to share it with people down the road. Because, when they said they were going to be, there's going to be Kiss 2.0, they were kind of vague. People assumed they were going to have other guys dressed like Kiss. That was thrown out there, whatever. But to me, Kiss 2.0 is this post end of the road era where, it lives in other ways. And I'm excited to see what happens with Pop House and what they bring in the future.
No, we've often said that it's a 2024 was a slow year for Kiss, but I'm telling you, if we have patience, wait a few more years, 2027, I think big things are coming for sure.
For sure.
So, tell our audience, what kind of content does your page share?
Well, I started off like I've been doing freelance graphic design for about 15 years, and like I did, I never really started a business to where I would just kind of like do it like, in a corporate sense. It was just kind of word of mouth. I would design t-shirts for different bands that I knew, ads, just somebody needed something thrown together on Photoshop or whatever, I'd do it. And so in my spare time, I would kind of make like little Photoshop tributes to Kiss. I would find like really cool obscure photos, and I would make magazine ads or posters that I would like to see, and I would just do it like in my spare time at work on Photoshop or whatever. And then at one point in time, I became kind of obsessed with it. I was like just making these little things, and my probably one of my top 5 favorite Kiss songs of all time is "Larger Than Life" off of Alive 2. And I was like, what, like I really want to curtail my graphic design stuff and my love of Kiss and things that sort of kind of spun off of Kiss, into this entity that's like me doing graphic design, me sharing parts of my collection, me promoting what other Kiss fans are doing, me promoting what Kiss is doing. in kind of like an amorphous, undescribable, undefinable sort of entity I like to call larger than life media, because it's just various types of media, audio, visual. I'm going to be, posting some video content in the future, and I'd like to kind of get into the podcast realm or whatever. But in all actuality, it's an all-encompassing tribute to Kiss, to the Kiss fan community at large, as well as the band. And it's also, like shamelessly a really, really cool way for me to connect with people that I want to connect with. I mean, there's people that I admire in the Kiss community, like, you and your partner, the podcast Rock City people, Matt Porter, all these people that have brought me cool content over the past like 10, 15 years, that have sort of kept me, abreast of what Kiss is doing. Because to be honest with you, it's kind of like that's my newspaper. You know what I mean? I don't know what Kiss is doing unless I listen to a Kiss podcast.
Right.
And I want to give something back to it. And I think it's going to evolve. But until then, I'm gonna make cool little graphics in tribute to Kiss, and I'm gonna like share parts of my collection and and stuff like that, and I share other people's content as well, because I want more people to know that there's more stuff out there.
I got to know you through that page, and then I invited you to the podcast because I want to get to know you better. How do you personally engage with other Kiss fans through your page?
What's really cool is there's old friends of mine that were sort of part of my little group of Kiss fans growing up that they'll comment or like, or they'll send me a message asking me about a memory from back in the day, like, because me and a few of my other friends, we were kind of like the outcasts. We were like the people that got crap, and got sort of like picked on for liking Kiss, and when growing up in the late 80s and the early 90s, I mean, we had like, there was heavy metal and grunge and gangster rap and all these things that became so popular. And while, we all liked that stuff, Kiss was a constant, and we still, held on to our love of Kiss. And so a lot of cool little stupid situations happened when we were younger, and we have memories that are tied to Kiss directly. And through the page, I've met other people that are other Kiss fans that have shared their memories with me too, privately through messages and stuff like that. And just kind of just connected through through that, and started little conversations with people that I probably would have never got to know on social media if it wasn't for the stuff that I posted. So that's kind of cool.
Now, you say you've been a Kiss fan since what, you were 8 years old?
I would honestly say, yeah. I was a Kiss fan since I was 8, and then a Kiss fanatic since age 12.
Okay. Now, besides being a Kiss fan and loving Kiss music, what other bands do you like, or genres of music do you enjoy?
I like I'm a big punk rock and hardcore. A lot of the New York hardcore stuff, like Cro-Mags, Gorilla Biscuits, Sick of It All, Agnostic Front, that whole New York hardcore scene. And it's kind of funny. My love of that scene came from Kiss, because I've always done this thing where, like, if there's not a Kiss connection, I'm not interested in it. And there was a time the only music I listened to was Kiss related music. I remember, I think when I was in like 8th grade, I listened to Easy-O, House of Lords, Keel, like anything that like Gene Simmons or members of Kiss, Wendy O. Williams, anything that Kiss put their hands on, I got into it. And through that music, I got into other stuff, and then like when I got into skateboarding, I got into punk rock and hardcore and stuff like that. And then it was always funny how like I'd be into a certain hardcore punk band, and then I would read an interview or there'd be some sort of Kiss reference or whatever. So to me, Kiss has been the thing that's kind of like tied together everything, everything that I like musically. And like, I've sang for hardcore bands. I've played guitar in rock and roll bands. I've played bass in punk rock bands and stuff like that. And I've always found a Kiss connection or a Kiss influence in the bands that I really like. And I would talk to other people about it, and they think I'm crazy because they don't see it. Right. But I would go super, super deep rabbit hole and just get nerdy about the band. I'm like, oh, actually, no, they're from Queens. And Gene and Paul are from Queens. So, this hardcore band from New York, they're from Queens, and then come to find out the singer from that band, Kiss is his favorite band, but they
Oh
play
my
with, like,
God.
you know what I mean? And that to me, I felt like I was connecting with the members of that hardcore or punk or metal band because they loved Kiss too,
Oh,
So
so that's cool, like a 6 degree of separation kind of thing.
absolutely, yeah, total Kevin Bacon kind of thing, but with Kiss.
Very cool. And I mentioned in the intro, you're also the bassist for River City Rejects. So
Mhm.
what's the Kiss connection there?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a Gene Simmons guy. Like, Gene's my guy, like top to bottom. Since I like I said, I was originally attracted to the multiple or the different characters in Kiss because Peter Criss was the one that grabbed my attention first. And then, of course, you see Gene Simmons spit fire. Then I'm like, all right, Peter, sit down. This guy's got it. Gene's the man. And so I play bass in River City Rejects, and I also share in the vocal duties. So what's really cool about this band is my drummer Tony and my guitar player Cody, like, all three of us sing. And I thought that was awesome because and of course, Kiss, they wanted to be the heavy metal Beatles. And so I want River City Rejects to be the punk rock Kiss in that, except we don't have a lead guitar player. We're just a trio. But and also too, the type of equipment that I pick out is, what did Gene play? Like, what kind of amp did Gene play? What kind of bass? I play an Epiphone bass because Gene Simmons played Epiphone, for a long time. He's got an endorsement deal with Gibson right now, and Epiphone is a Gibson company. So it's just like, okay, I want that Gene Simmons tone. So I get an Epiphone bass, and I get it, and I'm trying to buy an Ampeg head and all this kind of stuff. So, and my stage presence, I'm not going to be breathing fire or spitting blood, but like, I'm going to be right up front there and working the crowd, as much as I can. And it all goes back to Kiss for me. Like, I got into music because I wanted to do what they're doing. But what's always great about Kiss is they wanted to do what the Beatles were doing, what Led Zeppelin was doing, what, various bands, but they did it they wanted to do their own way. So I figured, okay, punk rock to me, is rock and roll, and Kiss is rock and roll. And so to me, as long as there's that through line of rock and roll in the music that I'm doing, and the through line of Kiss and what I'm doing creatively, I'm happy.
Okay. And do you feel that Kiss has an influence in the music of River City Rejects?
Well, to be honest with you, not the later material, but like, since I've been in the band, we've written a couple of new songs, and I can honestly say that the way that I play bass and the way that I've contributed certain parts is very much influenced by, like, what I've had in my DNA from listening to Kiss over the years. The way Gene Simmons just, laid it down in the pocket and played a certain way while he sang, and I'm sure subliminally in some ways there's some Kiss DNA in the riffs and whatnot that I've contributed to the new music. I can guarantee you that much.
And it's interesting because it almost sounds like you're living in two different worlds, right? The punk rock world and the hard rock Kiss world. Would you
Sure.
say there's a bridge that connects those two worlds?
I think so. And what's really cool, that's an excellent question, because this is a conversation I have with a lot of people. Because you look at some of the early Kiss flyers, they played with Iggy Pop. You know what I mean? They played shows at Max's Kansas City back in the day, and of course Iggy Pop being, the godfather of punk rock. Max's Kansas City was, alongside of CBGB's. That was really kind of where, like, glam, androgynous, just over the top punk rock originated from. Like, the New York Dolls, who were a huge influence on Kiss, they were like the house band of Max's Kansas City pretty much. And so, also, by that same token, one of the first books I ever read about Kiss, they referred to Kiss as a glam punk band, right? So when they started off, in New York in the early 70s, punk rock was bubbling under the surface and getting ready to explode. Kiss were doing what they were doing alongside David Bowie, T-Rex, The Sweet, Mott the Hoople. All that stuff had come before Kiss, but to me, Kiss was a part of that. And to me, you wouldn't have punk rock if it wasn't for those bands. And so what you're saying about existing in two different worlds is totally right. But what's really awesome is there's so many punk rock bands that I've gotten into over the past, like, 30 plus years, that their influences are early Kiss and the New York Dolls and the Ramones and in the Stooges and stuff like that. And like I said earlier, there's Kiss is in the DNA of everything that I listen to. So on one hand, you could say, yeah, there's a certain punk rock, no frills, no stage show. Just get up on stage in the clothes that you wore to work and just rock out and go home. But then again, there's definitely the same type of energy and bombast, that exists. But like to me, like I think that like Kiss, what they did with the makeup early in taking the chances they did early in the days was very, very punk rock, in my opinion. And so like, although you've got two different genres of the hard rock, classic hard rock world, and you've got punk rock, to me, I think that they've coexisted, at the same time and intermingled in so many ways. You read interviews with so many people that were like, Patti Smith probably hung out with Ace Frehley back in the day. You know what I mean? And, Jerry Nolan from the New York Dolls was good friends with Peter Criss. You know what I mean? So I've never really seen a demarcation, but like, Kiss was just a band that evolved with the times that came from the same world that punk rock came from.
That's true, because if you look at Kiss tribute bands, you got rock, you got metal, death metal, country, and I think there are punk rock versions of Kiss tribute bands out there.
Yeah, actually, there's this one. I want to say I think they're from North Carolina. Last time I heard anything about them was about 10 years ago, but they're called Sick, SSIK.
Yes, that's right.
They're amazing. They play deep cuts. Yeah. They wear regular clothes, like 1970s, like street clothes and Kiss makeup, and they play deep cuts. And they're a bunch of like punk rocker dudes, like from like Atlanta or like Raleigh or something, And then one of my favorite punk rock, like the band Zeke, does a cover of "Shout It Out Loud" on an album called "To the Living End," which is one of my favorite like garage punk albums, and they kill it. And then just you just find these different Kiss covers that just pop up. Like I've heard bands covering Cold Gin, Parasite, Deuce, and it's funny because I think you brought up a very good point. There's these two different worlds where like, hey, I'm a hard rocker, I don't listen to punk, or hey, I'm a punk rocker, I don't listen to classic rock. Meanwhile, they're going home and listening to those musics, those Ramones albums, while their rocker friends aren't watching, and the punk rock kids, are pulling out Love Gun while their punk rock friends aren't watching, and I like to kind of break that barrier.
And are other members of River City Rejects also Kiss fans, or at least appreciate the band and their music?
Well, it's funny because the drummer I've known since probably middle school, and we grew up in the same small town in Iowa. And Kiss was a gateway band for him and I. And what was really great about him is, okay, my best friend is this guy named Eric Tran. He's a phenomenal guitar player who's been in like some awesome tribute bands, really good like heavy metal bands that have toured and stuff. And he was my closest friend that sort of helped, like when he helped me become more of a Kiss fanatic. And when I was 12 years old at my birthday, he got me Crazy Nights and Love Gun on cassette for my 12th birthday. And I was just like, oh my God. So there's something from, if you think about it, those albums are 10 years apart. You've got the, like 1977 and 1987. And I had like the best of both Kiss eras, right? So anyway, so my friend Eric, him and I, he kind of guided me along with, told me things about Kiss because we had older kids in the neighborhood that told me about Kiss. And then him and I were side by side tag team members of, Kiss fans versus everybody else. And then my drummer, Tony, he was a younger kid. He was Tony's guitar teacher. And so he taught him, stuff on guitar, taught him about Kiss, got him into different kinds of music. So fast forward to, we're in our late 40s and we're in a band together. And we kind of like both kind of like have this little connection that is all based on like people that got into music because of Kiss, and so he's more of like a, street punk, punk rocker guy, but he still loves the straight ahead rock sound. And my guitar player, Cody, I haven't known him for very long, but he's expressed an interest in doing some punk rocked out Kiss covers,
nice.
And so it's a very Kiss friendly band, but we do things in a very raw, simple, straight ahead kind of way.
Mm-hmm. I think that's fantastic. I mean, this band transcends so many barriers. Definitely, music is one of them, like all kinds of genres. I think that's amazing and an incredible the influence you've had on musicians, bands, people. Just an amazing legacy that this band
Mhm.
leaves behind. So John, promotion time. What's up next for River City Rejects?
Well, what's really cool is we're coming off of a little bit of a hiatus because, like you mentioned, I'm the new bass player, and they parted ways with their old bass player back in November, or early November. So since then, I've been learning the bulk of their existing set and writing new music with them. And so probably at the end of this month, we're going to be recording a 4 to 6 song EP. That's going to be, I think it's going to be on Rejected Youth Records, which is our drummer's label, and we have just a bevy of shows coming up throughout the spring. We're playing with some legendary punk rock bands like the Effigies from Chicago. They're back out on a tour, so we get to play with them in April. We're playing in Omaha, Nebraska, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Lincoln, Nebraska, Des Moines, Iowa. Since we're from I live in Sioux City, Iowa, but the other two members of my band live in Omaha, Nebraska, which
Okay.
is really great because there's a network around here, so we can stay in our region, and there's so many great venues. So, like I said, we're recording some new music, re-recording some old stuff, and we've got some splits. We got some split 7-inch singles with some other bands where it's a couple of their songs on one side, a couple of ours on another, and those are in the works right now. So between now and probably about June, we're looking to have about 3 releases out and probably about 12 shows. So we're getting ready to gear up pretty quick.
We just talked for about a half hour. It's really and it really dawns on me that you're such a passionate person. You're passionate about music, passionate about Kiss, passionate about the band that you're in now. It's nice to see.
Thank you.
So we're talking about connections and the amazing thing about Kiss, and I said it often as well that being a Kiss fan, there's a certain amount of celebrity that comes with being a fan. So speaking of connections to Kiss fans, have you ever attended Kiss related events such as a Kiss Expo or Kiss Cruises?
I actually haven't, but what's really cool is there's a podcast called Conversations from the Pit that I'm a co-host on. It's kind of on a hiatus right now, and my co-host Dustin Lytle, he runs Music the Lifeblood podcast, and he lives in Indiana, so he's been to the Indiana Kiss Expo a few times, and that picture of Bruce Kulick on my wall right behind me is an autographed picture of Bruce Kulick he got for me at an Indie Kiss Expo, I think back in 2017 or 18, and he got it autographed for me. And at the time, I was living out in North Carolina, like on the East Coast of North Carolina, so it was a bit too far for me to go to Indiana or whatever. But he was cool enough to go there and have Bruce sign that picture for me. Which, I mean, like I said, I'm a Gene guy. And I love the classic era, but of like Kiss Mach 2, I would probably have to say, Bruce, Bruce is my guy as far as guitar players. I mean, Ace and Bruce right there, and so when he sent me that picture, I about lost it because I was almost in tears because I was just like, the first time I ever saw Kiss was with Bruce and Eric Carr. And having this thing that Bruce touched and signed, and he wrote, what's written on it is, "How did you get so hardcore?" Which is something that, yeah, my friend Dustin was like, "Oh yeah, you're the hardcore guy," and I'd be like, "No, actually, I love classic rock. I'm not just a one dimensional," because at the time I was singing for a hardcore band, and so just kind of as a little bit of a like a rib against me, like Dustin had him write to John, "How did you get so hardcore?" And I'm just like, that's amazing. I love it.
So what would you say were some of your favorite shows that you've seen?
Probably the most mind-blowing thing I saw Kiss on the Psycho Circus tour
Yeah.
with Peter and Ace. And that was about the 4th time I'd seen Kiss. And I couldn't believe, I literally felt like I was in a dream. I felt like I was seeing Frankenstein or Godzilla in real life by seeing Peter and Ace on stage with Gene and Paul, because I thought that was never something that was never ever going to happen. And like, 3 or 4 songs into the set is when it really dawned on me. And I literally like, I got choked up because I was sitting here like, this is something that I thought I would never ever live to see, and they played at the Omaha Civic Auditorium on that tour when I saw them. And like, I remember seeing Kiss for the first time there on the Hot in the Shade tour in May of 1990. And like, it was just unreal. And then I saw them on the Revenge tour in Lincoln, Nebraska, with Eric Singer and Bruce. So I've, aside from the Vinnie Vincent era, I've seen just about every era of Kiss that there is to see, that I can think of. You know what I mean? And I'm just like, I feel so fortunate. But like I said, just the Psycho Circus tour, just because to me, like, Kiss was so mythological. Yeah. Peter and Ace and Gina Paul. It was just like, I mean, I couldn't fathom, and like the first time I saw Kiss, I was right up in the front row. And I remember on the Hot in the Shade tour, they had those things that went kind of like on the left side of the stage, yeah, where the little catwalk things. And I remember Gene going up and just walking up. And I was probably about 5 feet away from where Gene's foot was. And just being like in Gene's presence, it was just mind, because there I was, I was like 14 years old, you know what I mean? And like, just seeing them in real life, we're breathing the same air, yeah, in the same, yeah, building. I'm just like, so, but yeah, like, to answer your question in a very long and drawn out way, seeing the original 4 on Psycho Circus was just unfathomable. I mean, just unreal.
And I'm assuming you saw Bruce Kulick on stage.
Yes.
And your thoughts?
Oh, it was okay. One thing I noticed was when I saw him on the Hot in the Shade tour, when he did the guitar solos. Tour. Oh, my favorite. Yeah. Any footage that I see from that tour, that's when they really started to pull out the older songs. Yeah. More so than ever. Yeah. And I mean, it was a 2.5 hour concert, and 9/10 of the show was Makeup Era Kiss. And I remember Bruce didn't play the solos the way that Ace played it, but he was putting a whole new flair on it. And it was just like, of course, I loved, I mean, No 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 was like one of my favorite, Bruce guitar solo centered songs, right? Yeah. So seeing Bruce just shred and just stand there, just like just effortlessly just do his thing. And then I see him on the Revenge tour, and they go and they do some of the Ace era songs, and then he's nailing the solos the way Ace did it, and then but it was just kind of like, so it was really interesting to me to go and seeing Bruce put new solos into songs that I love, and then doing the original ones spot on the Revenge tour. It was mind blowing.
Brings up an interesting point. You have the music played originally by Paul, Gene, Peter, and Ace, and then you have the other members, Bruce, Vinny, Mark St. John, Eric Singer, Eric Carr, Tommy Thayer. What do you think about the changes that Kiss made to the music in the 80s? I mean, the music was a lot faster, played a lot faster then.
Mm-hmm. I loved it. I mean, Kiss Animalized Live Uncensored. I love that part. It's so and some people will criticize because they played it a little bit too fast. I loved it. I mean, I was just like, with me being like, the classic, 1980s, ADD, kid that just, I wanted to consume everything all at once. And, I wanted to like, just go, skateboarding, running around, blah, blah, blah. And seeing Kiss running around stage looking great. I mean, they looked fantastic. Of all the 80s bands, there was so much of an awkward transition from the 70s to the 80s for a lot of bands, that kind of crossed over. I thought Kiss embraced it like just flawlessly, and they looked so cool. They played the songs faster, and they did songs like Young and Wasted, which I thought was like, that was kind of like the best Motorhead song that Kiss ever wrote. You know what I mean? Yeah. And like, but no, I loved it. And I think, I mean, there's some stuff on Animalized and on Lick It Up that that rival any of the more aggressive Judas Priest stuff. I mean, and I think too many people listen with their eyes, and they listen with preconceived notions, and they listen with critics in their ears too much, to where, and just because at one point in time, Lick It Up was everywhere. And in comparison to some of the stuff on the album, it is a little bit more plodding and not as energetic, but it's still a powerful song.
Yeah. But
like that album, I mean, I think it was Joey Casado recently said on Podcast Rock City that Lick It Up is a heavy album. And a lot of people think that Creatures of the Night is the heaviest thing that they did in the 80s. I kind of beg to differ. I think that Lick It Up is a powerful metal album. I mean, it's just it's prime 80s metal. And I think that there's a trilogy for me of Creatures of the Night, Lick It Up, and Animalize. That those are three just powerful 80s metal albums. And then I love Asylum, because to me, I think Asylum was hinting to what was to come on Crazy Nights, and it still had flares of or little remnants of Animalize and Lick It Up, because there's Fits Like a Glove, is another fast song, and then there's stuff on Asylum that sounds like it could have come right in that whole mix. You could literally, at one point in time, I could just blindfolded throw in any of those albums, and I would kind of get them confused. I would think that Not for the Innocent was on Animalize or whatever. So to me, it was very, very cohesive. And I loved that string of albums. I mean, I'm an 80s kid, so that's sort of my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you said it. You used the word cohesive. It's interesting because I feel that 80s Kiss and 70s Kiss, the music, was a bit of a contrast. I think they needed to speed up the 70s stuff to keep up with the 80s stuff, and that made, I feel, the music cohesive in the 80s. And then hearing it live, for me, for the first time in Hot in the Shade, oh my God, it was just an amazing experience. And for me, no other concert will top that one. Besides, obviously, my first show was Dynasty, but God, Hot in the Shade, wow.
Do you know what I think was really cool about the Dynasty tour? I love the way Paul sang Detroit Rock City on that. When he would do that, I know I gotta hit the road. He would put the little extra flares on it. What I was thinking about that recently, I was actually watching the Largo footage recently, and I've noticed from being in bands over the years, when you write a certain song, and as you play it live, it tends to change over time.
Yeah.
And it will evolve or whatever. And sometimes some bands will go and re-record it or whatever. But one thing I think is really great about having, the Kiss bootlegs and the live stuff to watch is to see how different eras, how they played those songs. I swear to God, dude, when I first heard them do I Was Made for Loving You on a Live 3.
Oh my God, yes.
It's a whole new song.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, people were calling that a disco song, but then when we heard it on a Live 3, it's like, that could be played hard, man.
It was, honestly, you could call it a thrash song, the way they played it on. You know what I mean? Because there's some stuff by bands like Exodus and Overkill and and Anthrax that pretty much kind of they had the palm muted chugging going on. And and that's all over that song, and then like you said, with the kind of speeding up some of the classic songs, like I Stole Your Love.
Yeah.
When they played that on the Hot in the Shade tour, that punches you in the face. And then Love Gun, you kind of think of that as being an anthemic song that's probably one of my favorite Kiss songs ever. But the way that they belted out Love Gun on Revenge and Hot in the Shade tour, it's just they, I think that on one hand, they saw that, okay, well, in order to kind of compete with what's going on, we have to sort of enhance and beef up our sound and how we play these songs. But then again, at the same time, I think that the way Eric played drums, definitely Eric Carr played drums, sort of made the songs pack more of a punch. And then when they brought in Eric Singer, people can get mad, cancel me, whatever. Eric Singer is my favorite Kiss drummer. I'm not even going to lie. I've watched drum cams of Eric Singer from the Rock the Nation tour. Just amazing. And what the coolest thing was, there was this little 10-year-old kid that would dress up like the Catman and do play-alongs on YouTube. I don't know if you've ever seen this, but like this young kid, maybe like 9 to 11 years old, and they side by side they had a drum cam from Eric. I think it might have been like the Aerosmith tour. Eric and this kid side by side, and not until I saw that kid play verbatim what Eric Singer played did I notice what Eric does in these songs. Mm-hmm. And not disparaging Eric Carr, who was phenomenal, but I mean, like, Eric Carr left quite a bit on the table for what he could have done in those songs. And I'm not saying that overplaying is a good thing, but just the flavor that Eric Singer brought to these songs. You know, I'm sure that when Paul Stanley was on the solo tour with Eric, he's like, oh man, that sounds amazing. I need to figure out how to get this guy, you know. And unfortunately, I mean, I still get choked up thinking about it. Unfortunately, when Eric Carr passed away, I think that Eric Singer breathed some new life into Kiss, like, you know, like tenfold. I mean, unbelievable, you know. And like you said, I mean, the Kiss songs just had way more power. They packed way more of a punch. You know, the combination of Bruce Kulick, who was like, oh, I got a drummer that's just as good as me on drums as I am on guitar. Right. And Kiss was just so strong right there.
I don't think I've ever mentioned this on the podcast, but I remember, because I was a fan since I was 8 years old in 1976 till about 1980. Then I checked out in the 80s and got back into them in 89. And then I went back into the 80s catalog and the 70s catalog. And I remember, because I was talking about contrast, and I remember in the 80s, I liked the 80s Kiss stuff better than the 70s Kiss stuff, you know? But then when they beefed up the 70s stuff to keep up with the 80s stuff, and then hearing it live on Hot in the Shade, I had a deeper appreciation for those songs. And like you mentioned, I Stole Your Love and Love Gun. Oh man, those two songs kicked ass on that tour.
Yeah, well, and see, what I call them ghost notes. You ever gone and seen a band and like the sound in the venue is terrible, right? But you know the band's music so well, right? So there's times on the shows where I'm up front, but I can't hear the vocals. But if I want to hear the vocals, I got to walk back by the front of house to hear the vocals. But so I'm sitting there and I'm hearing like what I've heard on other like bootleg recordings, what I hear on albums live, but I see them moving around and like strumming their guitars and everything like that. So I'm hearing in my head the ghost notes that aren't there. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think when I go back and listen to old Kiss albums, I hear how they sound now, or sound, you know, or how they come to be sound when I go back and listen to it. Like Deuce is one of my top 5 favorite Kiss songs too. And like the way that when they would open up the Revenge tour with Deuce, I want to say I've seen some footage where they've opened up with Creatures of the Night, and they go into start with Creatures of the Night, and then they go into Deuce, or the other way around. I've seen it both ways, but the way that they do Deuce, whenever I listen to the first Kiss album, or even listen to Kiss Alive, I hear Deuce in my head the way they play it on Alive 3. At the same time, it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like you're always going to have those things in your head. I'll be at work or at the grocery store somewhere with no music in my ears, and a Kiss song will pop into my head, or something pop in, and I'm hearing it loud and clear, right? You know, and so you're always going to carry those ghost notes or those ghost tracks in your head. So like, kind of like, you know, like, again, not to, you know, go on and on, but like when I hear old Kiss, I hear the new version at the same time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, I was very familiar with the old Kiss, listening to those songs beefed up in the late 80s. I'm singing along to the songs, but my singing doesn't match with how quickly they're doing it. So I just stop and then listen to the song and really just, oh my God, it's like in another world listening to these tunes, man. Just incredible. Well,
here's a question. Do you ever Mandela effect Kiss songs, if that makes sense? You know what I'm saying? You know the Mandela effect is, right? Where it's just like, there was this thing where people swore up and down that Mandela was in prison or whatever, or I'm probably completely butchering this, but let's just say, for sake of argument, for example, people would say, oh yeah, Mandela was in prison. Then you find, oh no, he never was. Oh. Why did I think he was? Right. I Mandela effect certain parts of Kiss songs. Well, there'll be like a guitar solo, right? Well, I'll hear like a and like I'll hear it and I'm like, I'm like, where's those extra few notes? I Mandela affected them because
Right.
I'm sitting thinking like if I have my guitar on my lap, I would play that. You know what I mean? And then all Mandela affect like certain lyrics of of Kiss songs, and it's just where it's just kind of like then I realized, wow, I've listened to a lot of Kiss in my time
Right.
and completely rabbit hole to the point where I will hear things that I think are there. And then another thing too is all the Kiss magazines back in the 80s and the interviews that you read where Gene and Paul kind of had to sort of they didn't lie, but they had to sort of kind of like Reader's Digest
Yeah.
version parts of history. So they would leave out certain things or they would change certain things. And then Extreme Close Up comes out, Confidential comes out, Kiss My Ass comes out. They're telling these stories that you read years before, but now the story is different.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, but the one thing I've noticed that it's always stayed the same was Ace was wearing two different colored shoes.
Right.
You
Yeah. Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and then I read somewhere before where they said Ace was wearing two different colored socks. And I remember I was like watching on one of the videos after I read that in a magazine. I'm like, so did Kiss botch that story or did the reporter botch it? So I do that with Kiss songs and lyrics and costumes. I'm like, oh, I thought that was so and so. So yeah, there's just a lot of that with me. But I mean, it's just, I don't know. I mean, I guess it's like a parallel universe that exists in my
Right.
brain when I think of Kiss. So
I understand that. If the analogy holds, I did the same thing with a Kiss performance. I swear, one of my favorite songs is Charisma. And I swear I remember Gene Simmons singing Charisma at the Dynasty show. I'm from Montreal. It was the Montreal Forum. And I remember vividly in my head where he's standing on stage, where he's facing the audience, singing that song. He never played Charisma on Dynasty. And I
that's
thought, he
insane.
must have, but I swear I remember. And you cannot convince me that he didn't because it's in my head. It's incredible. I don't know where that came from, but I have that memory of it.
No, I know exactly what you mean because I mean, there's like I'm trying to think. I heard recently. Okay, so on the Kiss Symphony album, they do Great Expectations. For some weird reason, there's like you ever seen the video the Lost 1976 concert
Yeah.
DVD?
Yeah.
They don't do Great Expectations on that concert, do they?
I don't remember.
I don't think that they do. I think they very rarely ever, but like I picture in my head them
Uh,
doing Great Expectations
right.
with the overdubbed Japanese crowd that they used on Alive 2. You know what I mean? So no, that's funny that you say that because I just had this picture in my head, and then like I was thinking about that the other day after I watched the Kiss Symphony DVD for the 8 billionth time,
Yeah.
and I think I've laid on my bed when I was a kid listening to my Destroyer cassette, making videos. I've always created mental videos in my head. I remember being on road trips with my parents with my cassettes in my Walkman, just laying in the back seat with my eyes closed, just picturing like making Kiss video. I remember I made Kiss videos in my head for songs off of Asylum,
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So I probably pictured in my head very vividly Kiss on the Destroyer or Rock and Roll Over tour, singing Great Expectations, full regalia, the whole nine. So
Yeah, yeah. Just quickly, I strongly believe that I invented music videos before it came out because, like
same.
you, I was doing Kiss videos in my head before it ever became a thing on Much Music.
Funny.
So I want to switch gears for a second because I'm noticing your collection in the background. So
Right.
I'm assuming you're a Kiss collector as well?
Yeah. I'm not to the degree that the almighty Kiss collector, God himself, Xander, that guy's collection is
Yeah.
just mind blowing. I'll find myself watching an episode and like I'm staring at what's on in the background or what's going on in the background. I'll have to stop and rewind it about like 2 minutes to catch what he just said because I'm just trying to look and see what he's got. But I've got like I don't have a very extensive collection, but I do have I have like certain things that were kind of my holy grails that I've gotten. I've got like a Foot Locker that I have like all kinds of stuff in. I pulled out certain things. I've got the original Kiss comic book,
Mhm.
which unfortunately I got at some flea market a long time ago, and the front cover's been graffitied by some jerk that had the probably board and study hall with a pen.
Right.
I've got that. I've got the pressing of the first album without Kiss in Time on it. That's a very valuable piece for me.
Yeah.
I've got the Kiss cards. What's funny is up in this case, you can't really see it off camera, but I was working in this coffee shop, and it was before the reunion tour. It was kind of mid '90s. You had said something about how you had a little phase where you kind of dropped out of Kiss and came back into it, right?
Yeah.
Funny story is I was working at this coffee shop, and this lady puts a tip in the coffee cup on the side, and at a glance, I noticed something that I shouldn't have noticed so easily. It had Paul Stanley's autograph on this dollar.
Oh my God.
I'm looking at it and I'm like, can I have that? So I took $1 out of my wallet, put it in the tip jar, and I'm just kind of like, I was like, ma'am, I was like, where did you get this? And she goes, what do you mean? Like, this dollar? She goes, I don't know why. I showed her. I said, it's got Paul Stanley's autograph on it. And she goes, well, how do you know that? I'm like, you look at it, it's got the star and the big fat P. You know it. If you're a Kiss fan, from the Alive, inner sleeve and shit. I was like, yeah, this is. And she goes, well, I've been a waitress for a long time, so I might have waited on Kiss or whatever, or somehow. But anyway, so I grabbed that. So it's been in my my little curio cabinet for years. Paul Stanley's autograph, on this dollar. Never met him, but I've got his autograph. So that's and then I've got a pick, a Paul Stanley pick from the first time I ever saw Kiss, where like they threw out, as they do, they throw out picks. At the end of the show, I'm walking out, and I got a pick stuck to my sweaty arm, and it's a Paul Stanley pick. So, but yeah, I mean, I love to collect Kiss stuff, and over the years, I've got two grown boys in their 20s, and over the years, I've had to like sadly sell parts of my collection, to pay doctor bills, to do whatever when you're a young parent or whatever. And also too, there was certain times when like I didn't really feel that some of my Kiss collectibles were going to be really worth anything, because they're just things that just carried along with me. And I'd be at like a used record store or a certain place and like, oh, I really want this, this Metallica album, or this, this Agnostic Front record or something or whatever. So I would, gather up a lot of my CDs and my vinyl and take them to the used record store, get the trade-in value, and then I buy the new thing. And then I realized, wow, I went from like, about 1,000 records down to like 500, because I was just, always, when you're a punk rock kid, working as a dishwasher at a restaurant, with roommates, don't have that much money, and you want to go to a concert, or you want to go out of town or whatever, you go to the used record store and you sell some records. You go to the pawn shop, you sell a guitar, to buy Christmas presents, just stupid things you do when you're in your early 20s and stuff like that. So I at one point in time, I mean, I had tour books, I had like, massive amounts of Kiss cards, all kinds of stuff. But like over the past few years, I've started to my wife's, grumbling and eye rolling, I've started collecting a lot of VHS, and mostly like a lot of Kiss related VHS bootlegs, and then trying to complete my Kiss CD collection, and my Kiss vinyl collection's been pretty much complete for years and years. But yeah, I mean, and then Xander will bring up things on his show, and and just different people will mention certain things from certain eras of Kiss. I'm like, wow, I didn't even know that existed. So I'll start to look for it. Then, as being a Kiss collector, you find yourself, your eBay cart is just full of things that you want. So yes, I have become, a Kiss collector once again.
Sorry, shameless plug, but if you're into collecting, check out our Christmas episode. If you think you saw what Xander has, you've seen nothing. We talk about each other's collections, and I post the pictures from our collections. You should see the stuff that guy has. It's unbelievable. So definitely check out that episode. So if there was that one holy grail item that you'd want to get, what would it be?
It would be the pinball machine.
I hear you.
And what's funny about that is when I was in, I probably say like between 7th grade and 9th grade, there was this community center in my town of Denison, Iowa, that I lived in when I was younger. And they had a Kiss pinball machine. and it was the original one. And I was huge Kiss fan then. And so me and my friends, any chance we get, we'd go to this community center and we'd play the Kiss pinball game. So hours and hours of just sitting around that thing, putting our drinks on it, getting eating our fast food. Just we would hang out at this pinball machine, and play Kiss pinball, and it was free because it was at this community center. My dad worked for this home that took care of mentally handicapped people, and it was a community center that was an extension of that. So the people that worked for that home for the mentally handicapped people, like that were like higher functioning citizens, I guess you could call it, they would work there. They would they'd serve soda, they would clean or whatever, and so it became a cool place to where like they could come and intermingle with people, and make money at a minimum wage, but they were just kind of out about. And it was just this really, really cool thing that like that company did, where like they intermingled their mentally handicapped people with people that weren't, to where they felt comfortable around everybody, instead of just kind of, I mean, I can't imagine how horrible it would be to be someone that was born with like, mental retardation or something or whatever, where inside their body, they're thinking, I want to go play with these other kids, or I want to hang out with these people and stuff like that or whatever, and this place gave them a cool opportunity to, come there, help out, clean, hang out, whatever. And me and my friends would go there and we'd play Kiss pinball. We'd be out skateboarding. We'd come there and stuff like that. And we would just, it was, so to me, the Kiss pinball machine represents a really super cool era of like my preteen to my early teen era, where it was just kind of like being a part of a really cool organization that my dad worked for, that helped mentally handicapped people, a place for teens to go to where there was no drugs and alcohol, to stay out of trouble. And there was a Kiss pinball machine that was like the focal point for me and my friends, and so having that not only is a really super cool piece of Kiss memorabilia, it also represents a really awesome part of my childhood, when at the same time I was discovering Kiss and I was in a very positive environment. So it's kind of a multi-layered onion. But I mean, it's that would be, if that was the one thing if I had to sell off everything else I had in my collection for just the Kiss pinball machine, I mean, I'd probably cry about some of those things, but it'd be worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's because collecting Kiss is not about collecting stuff. It's about collecting memories.
Moments and memories, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Now it's interesting because I remember back in the 70s, Kiss was really big, more for their image and less for their music. I think Kiss music is so underrated. Do you believe that Kiss would have made it this far, 50 years, if the Kiss merchandising machine wasn't there?
What's funny? I heard somebody on another podcast kind of ask the same kind of what if question. And to be honest with you, I would say yes, simply because of how driven and like how savvy Gene Simmons was and is, and how driven Paul Stanley was, and how much of a good combination they were. And I really think that, let's say, parallel universe timeline, let's say they disband Wicked Lester and they go on to do their own thing, and let's say they end up sounding more like the Rolling Stones, right? And they're a blue jeans and corduroy band. Kiss, they might not have had the merchandise behind them that would have blown them up, but I think that they would have taken the too cool for school guys that were like criticizing people for being Kiss fans in the 70s, and I think that they would have dominated that environment, because I don't think people really realize that as talented as Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley were, they, I've always thought about how it would be kind of like, okay, it wouldn't be beyond them to go progressive. Let's say when they went on tour with Rush in the early 70s, that they were like, oh, how, these guys, are, doing something with this. And say if they went on a progressive route, I think with how smart and savvy Gene Simmons is with business and how driven Paul Stanley is, I think that I don't think they would have had the mass appeal that they had like with young kids and stuff like that. And, and parents buying them, Kiss merchandise for Christmas presents. But I think that they would be a band that would be right up there with the Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, because of how talented they are and how hard they work, really. I think it would just be a different version of Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley's, creation that would be so big,
Yeah, I agree. I remember years ago, I took guitar lessons. I quit because I sucked. But I remember my guitar teacher playing a couple of notes from Sure Know Something. And he goes, "Oh my God, this is intricate. This is amazing. This sounds fantastic." He had no idea till you actually play it. It's not, Kiss, the lyrics might be simple, but the musicianship is not. If you really play it.
Yeah, there's like on the deluxe edition of Love Gun where Paul Stanley's teaching you how to play, right? He's talking about stuff on and at that point in time when that came out, I'd been playing in bands for a long time, playing music. I didn't know what he was talking about because I thought they'd used standard 440 regular tuning. But there's some songs where they played open G, they played down half step, they played drop. I had no idea, and like I was sitting there kind of like picking out the notes, trying to learn how to play Love Gun and I Stole Your Love, and then just and then I will watch Paul's hands live. He on the History thing that came out in 2021 or whatever. On part 2, Paul Stanley's sitting there with his Smash Glass Iceman, and he's playing Rock and Roll All Night. And I'm like, I had no clue it was played like that. And he's playing like acoustic guitar chords and these weird augmented, like whatever you want to call them, things. And I mean, just like, they came from a whole different like background when they were writing songs in the late 60s, and they played with with that type of musical theory and that technique that they learned in the 60s and carried that on throughout decades beyond. And I think that's why Gene Simmons is a very underrated bassist. I mean, I remember him saying that when they wrote parts of Detroit Rock City, that he was thinking of a horn line like ba ba da 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 da. You know what I mean? Like he would always think of like a horn section when he would write things, and regular straight up rock and roll guys don't think of like what would it sound like if James Brown, or the Temptations were playing this, and it's just the way that they thought about songwriting and the execution. I mean, like they are complete people have no idea.
Yeah, exactly. Now, something I want to go back to something that was said earlier. We talked about how Kiss sort of played a role into your bass playing, right? And now we're talking about Kiss promotion and merchandising. Does that play a role in how River City Rejects is promoted to new fans?
Yeah, and it's cool because even before I joined the band, Tony was really, really adamant about having good looking merch and lots of it. I mean, they've got like hoodies, they've got T-shirts with multiple colors, multiple designs. They actually put out like a cassette with a demo cassette. And just like the merch that they have just looks really cool. And like I don't know if it's derived from like a Kiss influence, but the fact that the way that he promotes that band and the way that he likes to have merch and the way he likes to keep songs, Cody and Tony both like to keep songs very simple and easy to remember, is something that to me is very, very reminiscent of the way Kiss does things. And I think that with the fact that Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, they grew up on, bands like, The Move and Free and, The Faces, Rolling Stones, blah, blah, blah. They got influenced by these classically trained people that they grew up learning all the standards. You know what I mean? Like Paul Stanley, he was a big Jimmy Page fan. Jimmy Page learned skiffle, a really weird type of like old school type of guitar playing, and then got into like Delta blues and then merged the two. And then you get the way Led Zeppelin sounds. Paul Stanley listens to Led Zeppelin, wants to emulate him, puts his own twist on it or whatever. I see a parallel where we want songs where people can sing along, where you hear the song one time, you know how the chorus goes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we keep it simple, stupid. KISS.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
no, absolutely. Now, listen, John, this has been such a fantastic and interesting conversation. I just have one final question, and we like sort of ending the episode with talking about Kiss fans, because again, your fan page, Larger Than Life Media, celebrates Kiss fandom. So, generally speaking, what are your personal thoughts about Kiss fans?
I think that it's sort of one of those. It's like an underground kind of like it's kind of like a mafia without criminal intent. They're made men. You know what I mean? There's these people that have been around for a long time. You got Matt Porter, Andrew Scambatti, Julian Gill, Joey Casada. These people that Kiss has recognized and have been a part of the community. And what's really cool is these guys they don't act arrogant. They don't they're never condescending. They're like, oh, you're a Kiss fan. Awesome. And like Matt Porter is probably, I've only talked to him on, through, Facebook means, but the sweetest, nicest guy in the world. Joe Polo seems like he is just like the nicest. I mean, Kiss fans are, the nicest people. If you understand where we're coming from, we're going to treat you like family. Yeah. And I think that's why someone like me is going to feel that Joe Polo and Matt Porter and them are super sweet. We speak the same language. And to me, I see them as kind of like a group of made men in the Kiss Mafia, where it's like, we are legion, we are millions, but at the same time, there's this really kind of cute nerd aspect where it's like a Kiss fan can be someone that's like a Star Trek fan, a Star Wars fan, there's people that I know that like, okay, 9 times out of 10, if you're a fan of The Walking Dead or Stranger Things, you're probably a Kiss fan to some extent because you get it, the fan base appeal. And so there's just like, there's an unspoken bond because of being treated and kind of marginalized for being a fan. Because 2 things I noticed that make Kiss fans outcasts. One, back in your era, it was like, oh, that's that kid band. I'm a teen. I'm into Emerson, Lake and Palmer. You go listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. You're too cool for a band that your little brother likes. But at the same time, you do like them, and people that listen with their eyes, instead of their ears. But like, so in your era, you got crap for liking that bubblegum kid band. My era, you got crap for liking that old band. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so it's like, how could you be into Kiss when bands like Nirvana and Metallica and Faith No More and it exists, or like, and then I know kids that went straight from being big Kiss fans into being into like, just straight, just into hip hop, which is great. I love hip hop. I love metal, like all kinds of music. But some people people feel like they have to pick sides. They have to jump the fence. And to me, I just being in hardcore, singing for hardcore bands, playing guitar in like punk rock and roll bands and stuff like that. I never stopped paying attention to what Kiss was doing. But to kind of answer your question is like one era, you get marginalized for one reason, another era you get marginalized for the other, and then you have people like Daphne and Xander, who they got into Kiss from the reunion on, and I love hearing them talk about Sonic Boom and Monster and and that era, because what's really great is Xander's recently said that his favorite Kiss album is Monster.
Yeah,
and people feel like they have to crap on Monster and Sonic Boom because of Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer wearing the Kiss makeup. So imagine them getting crap from people. And in the Kiss, they got other Kiss fans, that are picking on them for liking that era. So you can't win. No. You're always going to be an outsider as a Kiss fan.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, you mentioned Xander and Daphne. What's so amazing about their show is that they are so positive about the band. To them, it's like, everything is amazing, everything is fun. I mean, we only live once. Enjoy it. Why look at the negative and focus on the positive instead? I think that's why their show is so popular.
Yeah. And honestly, that's an excellent point because like positivity and like just kind of this exuberance and this, being excited for stuff, it basically it's effective in like, rubbing off on other people. Like there's been times when I've had a really bad day and I'm just alone, just isolated at my work and like there's nobody else around me. And then my boss will come out and him and I will joke around, talk about something kind of funny, and then he'll walk away. And I'll feel like I've been energized. I'm like, oh wow, I feel like I just drank a cup of coffee, right? So when you see somebody that's so positive and lets you know how happy, a certain piece of Kiss merchandise or a song makes you feel, it makes you feel good too. And it's funny because I've kind of like had a sort of like a very, I guess, sort of vague, without naming any names or criticizing anybody, conversation with Xander on Facebook Messenger about like, certain people in the Kiss community, whether they've got a podcast or a page or whatever, where they spend so much time criticizing the band where they're almost trying to convince you not to like your favorite band while they say that's your favorite band. And yeah, you can be critical. I mean, like I was telling somebody recently about, me being a Kiss fan. I mean, I could admit that they've done some things that I wasn't really a big fan of, and even though, I'm not going to be the kind of person to say every single thing that they've done is, it was amazing or whatever. It's got different moods. And then, like you said, Dynasty, or Charisma is one of your favorite songs. So I remember when I first heard Dynasty, I was going back and I was digging back through the old collection pre-internet, and I found Dynasty, and I'd already heard Lick It Up, Animalize, and the more aggressive things. And I'm listening to like Dynasty, and I'm like, okay, Dirty Living is a disco song, like leaps and bounds to me far more than I Was Made for Loving You, right? And so I wasn't really digging that. Charisma was kind of like, what's going on here? And then Naked City, I'm like, this sounds like a song that would be the intro of like an 80s cop action TV show.
Oh, Unmasked, yeah.
Yeah. So, stuff like that from that era. And like, I like a lot of other people. I kind of like, I put Dynasty and Unmasked in the same, because I like to listen to them back to back. I love them now. They're great albums now. But at the time I was like, wait a minute, I like this, but am I supposed to like this?
Right.
So, and I think there's a lot of that kind of happens, and, I just kind of like, so as being, as Kiss being my favorite band, people can go, okay, well, they jumped the shark here, or they fell short here, or they made a bad decision there or whatever. And then if all you do is talk about those things, then, are you just, it's like somebody gets into a relationship, with a girl or a guy, and all they want to do is cut them down and abuse them, but they need to have them around so they have somebody to cut down. You know what I mean? And it's just like, I don't understand, being that negative about something that's brought you so much happiness.
Yeah. No, being a Kiss fan is believing in the wonder of Santa Claus at 40 and 50 years old, and not being afraid of admitting it. We're happy, 100%. We're enjoying it. Let us enjoy it.
Yep. Oh yeah. And what's great too is like, as you get older and you rediscover things that you missed, or you hear something differently, like there'll be an album. I mean, I'm sure, there's a lot of albums that, hey, you bought it when it came out, you're excited for it, you listened to it once and you put it away. And then you're like, I haven't given it another listen. So a few months later you pull it out and you go, oh wow, what the heck? I had no idea it was this good. Or there's an albums that you bought. Some people do this a lot. They'll just buy a bunch of stuff that was in their collection, but they don't actually listen to it. Say, okay, I collected it. And then they pull it out and they're like, wow, I was completely insane for not listening to this, And so there's certain things that I'll go back and hear. Like right now, like I absolutely worship the Elder. And what's crazy about the Elder, and this is my theory, like there's obviously, it was a weird shift in the style and everything. And we all kind of know that, the backstory of things, what happened. But anyway, So the version of Elder that's on all the streaming, the track listing and the sequence is different than what originally came out on vinyl and cassette when it first came out. I've got it on I've got two copies of it on vinyl, and one of them has the track listing that is currently on Spotify and iTunes listed on the back, but the record has listed on the label the original track listing,
Yeah.
and it plays the original track listing.
Yeah.
And then I've got a copy of it where the back is a certain sequence, and the label on the record is the same sequence, and what plays on the record is the same sequence. And I can't think of right off the top of my head. I want to say it's the one that doesn't start off with fanfare.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with but anyway,
The Oath.
Yes, you're right. Yeah, 100% starts off with Oath, and that track listing, the sequencing of that album is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It makes more sense. But if the only version that you've heard, I could totally see people, because honestly, the track listing that's on Spotify and iTunes right now and stuff like that, it's just, the sequencing is just bad. It's one of those sequences that causes you to skip certain songs.
Right.
And the sequence that I have on vinyl, you don't skip it. You can't wait to hear what comes next, And so going back and listening to it again with fresh ears, is definitely something that I've done. And also too, I dismissed Unmasked for a long time because I had it on cassette. I got it in ninth grade on cassette, kind of put it to the side, didn't really care about it, got more into Revenge and Alive 3 and stuff like that. And then about 5 years ago, I finally obtained a copy of Unmasked on vinyl. That album sounds so good on vinyl. I mean, even Shandy, which is a song I've hated for years, I love now because it is, it just the way it just sounds great. And I think I lucked out and got an original pressing. It's got on the label, it's got the picture from the poster on the label, where they're pulling the masks down and they've got the makeup on, but yeah, I mean, just stuff like that. I mean, and kind of, to answer your, kind of what you were saying is you've got so much stuff that you can go back to. Mm-hmm. And still the whole believing in Santa Claus in your late 40s, that's 100% what it is. I mean, I'm looking at Kiss on stage and I'm believing that they're these superheroes that can breathe fire and shoot lasers out of their eyes and, from their fingertips, and, a cat man that can jump 50 feet in the air, but they play these kick-ass songs, and the music is more intricate than people give them credit for. And people say that their lyrics are so simple, but to me, their lyrics are perfect because they fit the music and they get the point across. And Paul Stanley said something in an interview about we don't ever talk about politics because who cares what a rock star has to say? You know what I mean? They provide the music to give you a break from politics and, day-to-day drama and stuff like that. Kiss is it's an escape, but at the same time as it's an escape, it also inspires you in the real world to better yourself and reach for a higher goal. So on one hand, you're in the fantasy world, you're also in the real world, kind of saying, hey, I want to be like Gene. I want to have, the money bag being my symbol, which means success. Mm-hmm. Paul Stanley, the star child, he's the star. He went from being a kid that was half deaf, that was picked on, and this chubby little kid, to probably one of the biggest sex symbols of the 70s and the early 80s, and just seeing the way they transform themselves. And then they also exist in a fantasy world. It's mind-blowing to me sometimes.
My friend so perfectly said, I wish Claudio was here to meet you. He would have loved to talk with you and have this be part of this conversation, because we're of like minds. And near the end of the episode, basically we're talking Kiss philosophy here, and how it affects us, and how it inspired us, and that was so perfectly well put. And again, having talked to you for this hour plus, I feel like I've known you for a long time, and I know if we ever met in person, man, we would be best buds, because we are, absolutely, as Kiss fans, we are so connected, so like-minded, have a lot of similar values and principles related to this band. And then, like you said, that comes back out into the real world and affects us there. Just beautiful. Thank you so much once again, my friend, for coming on the show.
I agree, and I appreciate it. Thank you too.
Thank you. So to the KISS Army, we hope you enjoyed this episode. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please send them to talktome@kissarmynationpodcast.com. Till the next time, remember, never stop rocking. Take care, everyone. If you enjoyed this episode, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can watch us on YouTube or listen to us on Podomatic, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. This is about you, so please like and subscribe to support the amazing guests we have on the show. See you soon, KISS Army.